Hi guys, my name is Gideon Lim. Welcome to the Mr. Jagung Merah Regenerative Farm. In my hand here, we have a very beautiful corn. How beautiful? Let's take a look inside. Alright? Ooh, you can tell from the very top here that the silk has a very different color compared to a conventional corn. Wonder why that is. Now, if you take a look on the inside as you peel back the husk, revealing this beautiful set of fully flushed ruby red kernels. Now, this I'm proud to present is the South American ruby red corn, okay? An heirloom variety, very nutritious, okay? That is completely 100% natural, okay? What I mean by that is, you see these red color pigments that are lining every single kernel is completely produced by the plant itself, okay? The plant is producing this as a form of antioxidant, as a form of sunscreen protection for itself. Now, when we consume all this natural goodness, we are partaking in the plant's entire nutrient-dense life cycle, giving all that goodness from the soil, from the environment, from the air, from the water, all into our bodies, okay? So, let's peel back a few more layers, revealing that gorgeous, beautifully formed corn. Okay, fun fact, every single corn has about 500 to 600 kernels. So what you're seeing here is a collection of all the plant seeds. That's why it's so nutrient dense. You're actually eating all the plant seeds, okay? Now, I'm gonna take a bite out of this, all right? And hopefully you'll get to hear and not only see just how crunchy it is, okay? Fun fact, yes, it can be eaten raw. So sweet, natural goodness, natural crunch, okay? So good, I'm gonna take another bite. Okay? But that's not all, guys. If you see here in my hand, this right here is called corn silk. So all this corn silk here is also rich in antioxidants and the plant's red pigment called anthocyanin, which has all kinds of health benefits. And if you were to use this as a tea leaf or as a herbal substance, you just put it in a teapot, boil some hot water, just blanch it with it, steep it in the hot water for about 3 or 4 minutes, and what it does is it just gives you this beautiful red color in your teapot itself. It will turn into this gorgeous Ribena red, and when you drink all that will be good for your body, good for your soul, and good for your mental health as well. So yeah, don't throw this away, guys. This right here is what we call red gold, all right? Look at that, glistening in the sun, okay? All right. Now, I want to show you a little bit of my farm, all right? So let's head on a small little farm tour. I'm going to show you some of the plants, show you some of the flowers, and some of how we keep our soil healthy, all right? Come, let's go. Here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a matured corn plant, all right? This corn plant has got 2 sets of flowers. Very interestingly, okay? Now, the male part of the flower, called the tassels, right? They actually grow on top of the plant, all right? And you see all these little red bits here, very reminiscent of paddy actually. Well, both of them are from the same family, from the Poaceae grasses family. So what these do is actually they produce pollen. See all these little red bits here that are dangling here? They're called anthers, okay? Now, within each anthers are thousands, millions perhaps, of pollen grains. Now, when I gently shake them like that, you can see on my hand here, these fine little yellow powder here, which every single one of them has the potential to pollinate, guess where? The female flower, growing right here on the same plant, but at the bottom of the plant. Okay, so what happens in nature is that the wind would blow all this pollen here, okay? As you can see here, I'm kind of applying it using my hand, but the wind would pollinate this, okay? Now, this is really important because every single strand of the female flower here, by the way, these are called the silks, the very silks that when you peel open the corn, these will be attached to it. Now these are really important. Why? Because every single one of them here is connected and correlated to one individual kernel, okay? So in order to have a fully formed corn, you need every single one to be well pollinated, okay? So for instance, if you see in the supermarket, sometimes you get a corn cob which has a few empty kernels. Those are not because of pests. Sometimes it could be due to a lack of pollination, alright? So what happens when it's pollinated? You can see here that the silk is already turning red, okay? Compared to this one over here, which is not yet red, okay? And if we go further down the line over there, when they emerge, when they're not yet pollinated, you can see that they are completely white, alright? Now, not sure if you can get a shot of this, but as the wind blows, you can see the pollen gently sprinkling down here, you see? Look at that. Just look at that. Wow. Okay? So, every morning, right, besides the wind, bees would actually come and visit these flower stalks. And what they do is that they would actually grab onto these little anthers here and give a little dance, okay? They give a little shake and they vibrate these out. So that's actually called buzz pollination. Now, the bees are actually collecting the pollen to make bee bread for their colony. But in the process of doing so, copious amounts of pollen is spread throughout the field. Now, if you want adequate pollination, right, to make sure every corn cob is full, this is what you need to plant. This is how you need to plant. You plant them densely together so that when the wind blows and when the bees visit, all of them will be adequately pollinated, okay? So this is what a fully fledged corn farm or cornfield would look like, okay? Of course, there is some natural variation in the field, but generally all of them will get pollinated. Now, don't be too worried about having other plants, growing in and between your corn. These are going to be beneficial for not just the plant, but the soil itself. So, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how these plants work in harmony and symbiotically together with our corn plants to make sure this stays as a healthy farm environment. Okay, Jom, let's go see. Okay, so take a look at this. This is a corn plant, alright? And a really tall one at that. But take a closer look. What is this? There's something growing on the corn plant, alright? Now, if you take a really closer look, you might get some hints. If you take a look at this beautiful yellow-orange flower here, and if you spin it around, you can see something growing right at the back end of it. And this one as well, and this one as well, okay? So what can it be? Hint, hint, the fruits are right down here. Let's try and harvest one, alright? There we go. Okay, okay, okay. Ta-da! Isn't this gorgeous? This is a Japanese cucumber, alright? So what is a cucumber growing on a corn, okay? I mean, it really is inviting the pun, a corn-cumber, isn't it? So what is this corn-cumber doing right here? This is what we call an integrated farming system, or now more popularly known as an agroforest or a food forest, right? There's food literally growing everywhere in what is looking very much like a forest, okay? Now, there is method to this madness, okay? Don't let the chaos fool you. Now, what is actually going on here is that these plants are working in harmony. How so? Now, if you take a closer look, I'm going to put this down. If you take a closer look at the corn, she is providing the vertical structure, okay? She grows the fastest and the tallest, okay? And when the corn plant shoots up off the ground, it would create space for plants that require a vertical space to grow. Some of these plants include climbers such as beans, cucumbers, squash, melons, you name it, and even our own very local variety of water spinach, aka kangkong, okay, which is growing all around me, okay? So what is happening is the corn is providing the space. Now in return, some of these climbing plants, right, like beans, which we do have growing in and amongst here, provide valuable nutrients to the corn plant in return. Now, beans have this amazing ability to fix nitrogen from the air, from the atmosphere that we are breathing in right now, okay? And they pump it into the ground and they collaborate with all sorts of soil bacteria to then turn it into a usable form of nutrients, nitrogen, okay, to the plant. And they share it via something called underground nutrient transfer to all the surrounding neighbors, okay, to some degree. So what does the cucumber do? Very good question. Now, if you take a feel of these leaves, okay, I'm not sure whether you can hear it. As good as feeling it, I suppose. So, as you can hear, it's really rough, it's really spiky, and if you really just turn it around, right, it looks something like a sandpaper. Now, why is this really useful and important to the corn? Because corn is vulnerable to certain kinds of large pests, such as rats. Now, when rats try to climb the corn, all these leaves, right, actually help to prevent them or deter them to some degree, right, from climbing the corn. Because look at all these bristly sandpaper-like vines and all these leaves, right, they really get in the way of the rat's sensitive nose. So, in a way, it really is a pest suppressant. Now, besides that, right, the plant actually produces other kinds of aromatic compounds, right, to attract beneficial insects not only to the soil, but also to the entire ecosystem. So when you go into the field and you smell this wonderful cucumber smell, right, sometimes it's just coming off of the flowers, which, fun fact, are perfectly edible. Tastes like cucumbers, okay? So, they actually produce sort of this shield around the corn, which actually would attract beneficial insects, would attract pollinators, will attract birds and bees and things like that, right, to help out with the entire ecosystem. Now, that's not all. When their life cycle is complete, all of this biomass, all of these plants here that you see, right, for example, the cucumber, the corn, yes, and all these other wonderful nameless plants. Oh, this is actually really interesting, not really nameless. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Guess what? This is actually our native Malaysian poinsettia, which if you go buy from the stores, these leaves are red, right? But guess what? This native poinsettia here is perfectly green and camouflaged into its environment, and they are from the same family as the Euphorbiaceae, okay? So what they do is they provide other nutrients that the corn and the cucumber will not be able to provide to the ground. How so? Now, say for example, if I were to just pull up one little plant, all right, from here, the soil, all right, you can see that the roots are penetrating the ground in all sorts of very interesting and creative ways. Now, what happens is that the roots would invite certain kinds of bacteria to stay in them, okay? And the plant actually tells the bacteria via providing them with all kinds of root sugars. Now, how is the plant getting root sugars? Everyone can answer this. It's photosynthesis. So the plant actually pumps sugars from the sunlight, from carbon dioxide, and pumps them into the ground, feeding all kinds of soil microbes, right? So all these soil microbes will go out into the wild, go out into the soil. They gather all these nutrients back and feed it to the plant via a process called rhizophagy, as in the roots are actually eating and hunting and cultivating bacteria. Now, what happens is this. The plant then, okay, once it's undergone its entire life cycle, now it's basically accumulated all those good nutrients, right, would then, well, set seed and die and rot in the ground, providing, okay, something that we called chop and drop nutrients. So we chop the plant and we drop the top layer back onto the soil. Now the bottom layer stays underneath the soil like that, and all these root fibers and tissues would then provide food for the very same bacteria, and also earthworms and other beneficial insects that live in the soil. They come in and out and they would gnaw on the roots, and then they would leave behind a lot of nutrients in the form of their waste and their metabolites. And guess what? This thick little root mass here provides a very big air space for all the other plants to continue growing. So I'm just going to return this to the soil, and what I'm going to show you in the next section is how, when we do this on scale at the farm, right, you will see that it provides good soil for entire acres. Okay, come, let's go. Okay, check this out. Bonus reel, okay? Absolutely perfectly formed. Look at this. Okay, there's literally a land planarian and isopods crawling all over it. And for those farmers and consumers who think that all these are pests, we need to get rid of them, okay? No, they are actually beneficial for the soil. So we need to just put them back in. And guess what? See this corn over here? Be resourceful, be ingenious. Use this to just wipe the leaves. Wipe. And you have a perfect grade A mini cucumber ready for your salad bowl. Okay, and no, as they would attest, there is no pesticides, no fungicides, no weedicides, no herbicides. All right, so take a look at our local water spinach. Okay, these are the very mature and adult vines, you know, very thick and a little bit what we call weather worn. All right, so all this and that in the background would turn into our organic matter. Okay, so how do we turn all that back into goodness for the soil? Very easy. If you take a look over here, all we did was just to mow them down, okay, with a simple machine. Nothing to till the soil, nothing to scratch even the surface. We leave everything undisturbed. We only do a haircut for all those plants there. So what happens when we perform all that? You see on the soil here, you leave behind a thick layer of beautiful mulch. Look at that, beautiful mulch. Okay, we have literally inches thick, you know, a few kilograms. If I were to hold this together right there, right, that's already about 1/3 of a kilogram of good nutritious mulch. And this beautiful soil here is the result of years and years of regeneration. Now, there is a very interesting phenomenon, right, that will turn this into good soil. Now I want you to see that. Now, in order to see that, I'm gonna have to just slightly dig up a piece of this beautiful soil and show you. See? Wow, look at that. Whoa, look at that. Look at all this, okay? Take a look. So, in the soil structure, we have these beautiful, huge earthworms, okay? These are massive earthworms. Look at that. Look at how lively and wriggly they are. Oh, this one's kind of pretty. It's even got an iridescent sheen to it, all right? So, all these beautiful earthworms right here are the very magic helpers that are working to convert all of this, okay, you see here, that's like a little poinsettia flower, into good soil. All right, so when people come to my farm and they ask me, where is my vermicompost? I say, you're literally standing on it. You're standing on acres and acres of vermicompost. We've got more earthworms in the soil than a commercial like earthworm farm. Okay, now what this does is it converts all this that would otherwise go to waste, right, back into fertilizer, right? If you don't have these, okay, then whatever waste materials that you're putting on the soil right here will never go back into its proper life cycle in the soil. They would sit here on the surface for years and years and they would never rot, okay? So I'm just gonna put this back, okay, and just cover them back like so. Put this back like that. Okay, now I want to end this section by sharing a little story. So, I always like to tell people that we must treat our soils like how we were to treat our grandmother's skin. Yes, that's right. Why? Because the soil, just like our grandmothers, she is so caring, she is so generous and kind. She wants to feed the whole family. She wants to gather everybody around, gather the whole village, and basically make everybody happy. She is abundance incarnate, okay? But she is also very old, very fragile, and very wise. And so we must protect her. How? She always likes to be covered and not disturbed. So if we accidentally were to scratch her skin, which is so fragile and so frail, we must always cover her back, okay? And there's something called the soil health principles. These 5 principles, everybody should take a look at it, will tell us how we basically can keep our mother nature happy, okay? By not tilling the soil, by keeping her covered as much as possible, by constantly growing biodiversity, which is what you see here in our fields, okay? And also to incorporate livestock, live animals, okay? Which are all these earthworms and insects and beneficials, okay? Bacteria and fungi included perhaps. And also the community, which is really important to all of us. So it's not just about farming for food, but I always like to say this as well. We as a farm, we need a village to grow the farm, but also the farm to feed the village. And on that, I invite you guys to be part of our community. Thank you very much.